Empress Myeongseong, Queen Min,
born Min Ja-yeong, was the wife of Gojong,
the last king of Joseon and first emperor of the Korean Empire. Myeongseong was born on November 17, 1851, from an aristocratic family, the Yeoheung Min clan, located in present-day Yeoju. They could boast having had two important queens in their history: Queen Wongyong, the wife of Taejong and mother of Sejong the Great, and Queen Inhyun, the second wife of King Sukjong. In 1864, King Cheoljong of Joseon died at the age of 32. He was an unhealthy king and wasn't a powerful figure in court. The balance of power was in the hands of the Andong Kim clan, the family of his wife, Queen Sunwon. A new king was chosen, a 12-year-old boy by the name of Lee Myung-bok, later known as King Gojong. His father, Heungseon Daewongun, became regent and ruled the kingdom in his son's stead. Daewongun hated the Andong Kim clan's grasp on power at court. He made an alliance with the Punyang-jo clan to counter the Andong Kim clan's influence. His plan mostly worked, and he could rule without any obstacles for a couple of years. Daewongun was a big proponent of isolationism. No treaties, no trade, no Catholics, no West, and no Japan. I have made a video on Heungseon Daewongun and the turbulent times in which he lived, which you can find on my channel. When Gojong turned 15, his father searched for a bride. Princess Min was fatherless by this time, and she was said to have a healthy body, beautiful features, and well educated. Daewongun chose her because he didn't think at the time that she would be ambitious, only to realize much later that she was extremely determined and self-assured and would later thwart any of Daewongun's plans. She became his worst enemy. The other powerful clans saw her lack of a father and brother as a possible advantage to them and their schemes. She was 16 years old at the time of her wedding with Gojong. Princess Min became queen consort. Apparently, Gojong didn't spend his nuptial night with her, but with a concubine, Lee Gui-in. Queen Min didn't act like previous queens. She didn't seem to care for lavish social events and expensive fashion pieces. She spent a lot of her time furthering her studies by reading and writing in Hanja, something that was usually reserved for the male nobility. It is worth noting that at the time, Gyeongbok Palace, which was destroyed during the Japanese invasions of 1592, was restored to its former glory. Queen Min was described by her American friend and doctor, Lilias Horton Underwood, as having a soft face with strong features. She had pale skin and was quite thin. She had piercing eyes. Her voice was soft and warm, but could become strong when making a point. She didn't care for wearing many ornaments and necklaces, and wore just 1 or 2 rings made in Europe. Lilias Underwood wrote that Queen Min didn't strike her at first sight as being beautiful, but she had force, intellect, and strength of character. She held long and interesting conversations, even though it was through the use of an interpreter. On April 16, 1868, Gojong's favorite concubine, Lee Gui-in, gave birth to a son, Prince Ganghwa, who was given the title of Crown Prince. Daewongun was extremely pleased with the birth of his grandson. Queen Min, not so much. She gave birth to a son in 1871, but he died 4 days after his birth. Her father-in-law accused her of being unable to bear healthy sons. Remember, this was a Confucian society, and a male heir was the most important thing to keep the family heritage going. She suspected that Daewongun poisoned her, and that's why she lost her son. From that point on, she began to resent and distrust her father-in-law. Queen Min decided to use her political influence to form a coalition against Daewongun. With her brother, Min Seung-ho, and others, she formally demanded to the royal court the impeachment of her father-in-law. Gojong was 22 years old, and he should rule by himself. It was approved, and Daewongun was forced to retire to Unhyun Palace. Queen Min banished royal concubine Yi Gui-in. Prince Ganghwa was stripped of his titles, and he died in 1880 at the age of 12. His death was suspicious, and some think that Queen Min was involved. Queen Min and her clan took control of the court, and she placed members of her family in key positions in the government. She was much more active politically than Gojong. In contrast with her father-in-law, Queen Min and her allies were open to foreign influence from the West and China in order to help modernize the country. She wasn't in favor of Japan helping Korea, though. The Japanese had other plans. In 1875, there was the Ganghwa Island incident. This paved the way to the Ganghwa Treaty of 1876, which opened Korea to Japan and the world. Daewongun took this opportunity to blame the queen and her clan for opening the country contrary to his policies. It's worth remembering that at the time, Korea was dependent on Qing China. It was a tributary state of Qing, which is why Korea had a king and China an emperor. In 1880, Gojong and the Min clan sent a mission to Japan to study Japanese modernization efforts and intentions towards Korea. The envoy met a Chinese advisor in Japan who tried to convince him that Korea's best strategy was to stay dependent on China, stay close to Japan to keep them in check, be very wary of Russian intentions in East Asia, and become an ally of the United States as protection against Russia. On his return, the envoy made a huge impression on the king and the queen. Queen Min sent a paper to many aristocrats, Yangban, asking for their support in inviting Western powers to Korea to modernize the country. She wanted to use Japan in the modernization efforts, but only until some initial projects were completed, at which point she would ask Western powers to drive out the Japanese. Unfortunately for Queen Min, the aristocracy were absolutely opposed to any Western influence in Korea. More missions were sent to Japan. In 1881, there was a failed coup attempt to overthrow the king, the queen, and her clan from power. Gojong's half-brother, Prince Imperial Hwan-eun, was executed. In 1882, there was an insurrection by some members of the old military who were left out of the recent modernization effort of the military. Queen Min's half-brother, Min Ja-yeong, was killed. The rebels wanted the queen's head. She escaped the palace. Daewongun took this opportunity to step in and take control of Gyeongbok Palace. Chinese troops entered Seoul and restored order. They also arrested Daewongun. Gojong and Queen Min returned to the palace. Japan suffered damages during this insurrection. Korea signed a treaty with Japan in 1882. Korea had to pay Japan for damages. More importantly, the treaty gave Japan the right to post guards in the Japanese embassy. Seeing this, Queen Min gave China more trading rights and allowed China to post troops in Seoul. In 1883, the Queen sent her nephew, Min Yong-ik, to the United States. He was quite impressed with what he saw and urged the king to take actions to modernize the country without hesitation. In 1884, pressure between the progressives and the conservatives mounted. The progressives were frustrated with the growing influence of China on Korean soil, so they asked for Japanese to help them get rid of the conservatives in power, as well as the king and queen. The progressives killed many high-ranking officials, and King Gojong and Queen Min were held prisoners. However, the progressives' numbers weren't high enough and had no popular support. Ultimately, Chinese troops restored order. This made Queen Min even more distrustful of the Japanese. What ensued was China and Japan agreeing to remove troops from Korea during the Convention of Tianjin of 1885. The Royal English School, a school for the elite, was established with the approval of Queen Min. It was run by American missionaries headed by Homer Hulbert. He's remembered as a Korean independence activist. In 1886, an all-girls school was opened, the Ihwa Academy. It was run by Mary Fletcher Benton Scranton, an American missionary. The Queen was instrumental in allowing the institution to exist. The academy eventually became what is now Ihwa Women's University. The Queen officially supported the appointment of Protestant missionaries as government employees. Horace Newton Allen, an American missionary, was invited by the Queen to Korea. He was allowed to spread his Christian values as well as introduce modern medicine in Korea. He established the Royal Medical Clinic of Gwanghae-won in 1885. It was renamed Jejung-won, meaning House of Universal Helpfulness. It was renamed once again to Severance Hospital, now associated to Yonsei University. The arrival of Westerners helped in modernizing Korea and also brought different ideas to the country. Concepts like equality, human rights, and freedom were introduced to the populace. Western music theory and instruments were introduced as well. Christianity was tolerated because with it came modernization, although many Yangban and scholars weren't happy with the loss of Confucian ancestor worship that came with Christianity. In 1894, a peasant revolution began, the Donghak Peasant Revolution, also called the Gabo Peasants' War. The populace was under severe economic pressure. They also felt abandoned by their government, and they didn't like foreigners, especially Japanese, doing business on their land and seemingly deciding the destiny of Korea. It was a complex situation, which I have discussed in a previous video. China and Japan once again sent soldiers in Korea to quell the revolt. When they took care of the issue, they both decided not to leave Korea. Thus ensued the First Sino-Japanese War, which was won by Japan. Following this, and because of Japan's growing foothold on Korea, the Gabo reforms were suggested to the king. Their main provisions would bring about huge changes to Korea, for example, cutting off Korea's dependence on China, abolishing the class system, ending guilt by association, marriage age would go up for both men and women, official documents would be written in Hangul, merit would be the decisive factor in appointing government officials, and more. The reform was similar to the Meiji Restoration in Japan. As much as these reforms were good for the vast majority of Koreans, there was a specter of Japanese influence behind it. This is the part that Queen Min couldn't accept. So, she allied herself with Russia to counterbalance Japanese influence. Because of that, Japan saw Queen Min as an obstacle to their complete control of Korea. An assassination plot was put in place by Miura Goro. Isabella Bird Bishop, an English explorer and writer, writes in Korea and Her Neighbors that Queen Min was surrounded by enemies, chief among them Daewongun, who was embittered against her because of her talent and force, and succeeding in placing members of her family in nearly all the chief offices of state. Her life was a battle. She fought with all her charm, shrewdness, and insight for the dignity and safety of Gojong and her son, and the downfall of Daewongun. Daewongun is suspected of being involved in the planning of the queen's assassination. On October 8, 1895, at around 2 a.m., Japanese soldiers surrounded Gyeongbok Palace. Some were dressed in civilian clothing. Gunfire was heard. There was a lot of confusion. King Gojong sent for help to the American and Russian embassies, following reports that his palace was surrounded. It is believed that around this time, the queen went into hiding. A Russian advisor to the king, Afanasy Ivanovich Seredin-Sabatin, testified that the previous night there was an incident in front of the palace where Japanese soldiers were making a fuss. Moreover, he had received information from the Chinese that there would be some trouble on that fateful night, but nothing was done. There was some resistance from the capital guards, but they weren't well equipped, so eventually, Korean soldiers from the Heungseon Daewongun regiment defeated the guards. The Heungseon Daewongun was a new regiment trained by Imperial Japanese officers. The regiment was obviously pro-Japanese, but also anti-Russian. They thought Queen Min was asking Russia to put troops in Korea. On that day, the Korean co-conspirators let the Japanese assassin through. Gojong now knew who they were after and tried to divert their attention. Japanese soldiers threatened the crown prince and beat court ladies to find Queen Min. They made their way to Okhoru and approached Gojong Palace, where Queen Min resided. It is said that Daewongun was waiting in the building next to Gojong Palace. If that was the case, it meant that he knew about what was unraveling nearby and did nothing to stop it, which fueled the idea that he was complicit in the queen's assassination. Japanese soldiers found Queen Min. They killed her and her maidens. Her body was drenched in oil, burnt and buried. Only a finger bone was later found. Afanasy Seredin-Sabatin, whose written account of the incident was found in the Archive of Foreign Policy of the Russian Empire, wrote that from where he stood that night, he witnessed many Japanese turning upside down the queen's quarters and even asking him in English, "Where's the queen? Point out the queen to us." He saw court ladies being pulled and dragged downstairs. The main throne hall was surrounded shoulder to shoulder by a wall of Japanese soldiers and officers. He didn't know what was happening exactly in the throne hall. Shortly after the assassination, Gojong and his son sought refuge in the Russian legation. After leaving the legation, Gojong proclaimed the Korean Empire and became emperor. He changed Queen Min's title to Empress Myeongseong. He then organized a funeral procession for her on November 22, 1897. In 1910, following the Japan-Korea Treaty, Korea formally became a colony of Japan. Queen Min was, without a doubt, an important part of Korean politics at the time. Gojong was selected as king because it was thought that he could easily be manipulated by those who put him there. Queen Min demanded that he seized power for himself, which he did, and then he depended on his wife instead of Daewongun, his father. She was much more capable when dealing with domestic and international affairs than her husband. Her life and subsequent assassination has been the subject of numerous movies, TV dramas, and musicals in Korea. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for more videos on the rich history of Korea.